In this video, I will be discussing the Edge Auto Warping tool. For parking garages and other structures, it is often necessary to warp elements to allow for water drainage. Modeling this can be cumbersome. With the addition of the Edge Auto Warping tool, users can now easily warp structural framing members and their corresponding connections based on user-defined elevations. Auto warping accomplishes this by creating a loop from a grouping of spot elevations placed by the user on a given work plane. The elements within that loop will be warped. Prior to running the auto warping tool, you must first prepare the model by placing the spot elevation family in the appropriate locations throughout the model. This is easiest in a 2D view. Spot elevations should be hosted to the same work plane as the structural framing elements that they are intended to warp. The offset of the spot elevation should be adjusted to reflect the desired warp. A spot elevation instance must be placed at each change in elevation and at every corner of the structure for each applicable work plane. Before running auto warping, you must also decide if you want the tool to generate direct shapes. The direct shapes will represent user-specified materials in their warped state. These direct shapes are copies of the original material but do not get quantified in schedules and the like. To turn on the creation of direct shapes if desired, you must toggle on the auto warping create direct shapes parameter in project information. If this is not toggled on, direct shapes will not be created by auto warping. The auto warping tool can be found by clicking the Edge tab at the top of your Revit screen and by clicking the Geometry panel. To perform this tool, simply click the auto warping button. You will be presented with 3 warping methods: run auto warping for the whole model, the active view, or for selected spot elevations only. Please note that if you choose the selected spot elevations method, you may either pre-select spot elevations prior to running the auto warping command, or you may select them after choosing the selected spot elevations method. After a warping method has been selected, the tool will find loops formed by the spot elevations placed in the model. After a warping method has been selected, the tool will find loops formed by the spot elevations placed in the model and warp all eligible elements within the loops that it finds. Once complete, a success message will appear. All warpable structural framing elements within warping loops will have their warping parameters updated to reflect the warp defined by the relevant spot elevations. To facilitate warping of embeds, cast in place, and direction materials with the auto warping tool, 2 new parameters will need to be utilized: is warpable shape and auto warp displacement. Upon running auto warping, any specialty equipment or generic model category elements that have the is warpable shape parameter toggled on will have a direct shape belonging to the entourage category created for them. This direct shape is representative of where that element will be positioned in the warp state. Additionally, an auto warp displacement value will be written to all top-level specialty equipment and generic model families. This value represents the offset that the element would need from its current position to be placed properly for connecting to warp structural framing elements. This parameter could be used within parent families to automate the movement of nested embeds. For example, let's consider a spandrel to double T connection family. This connection family is composed of 3 nested families: a double T plate, spandrel plate, and erection material. Since the double T is cast in the flat state and is warped during erection, the original double T plate and erection material should remain in the flat state and should not have an offset value control their placement. Instead, direct shapes should be created to represent their location in the warp state. For this reason, the double T plate and erection material would need to have the is warpable shape parameter set to true. This means the auto warping would create direct shapes for each of these families to represent where they will be placed during erection. The spandrel plate would need to have an offset value written to it so that the original plate would be moved to the correct location within the spandrel to mate up to the warped double T during erection. So, the spandrel plate would need its is warpable shape parameter set to false so that a direct shape would not be created for it, and you would instead want to control its offset with the auto warp displacement parameter. This will allow auto warping to offset the spandrel plate to the correct position relative to the warped double T that it will be connecting to. Please refer to the auto warping help file for more information on how to configure this functionality within families. Please make sure all material type elements within the model are configured appropriately before running auto warping to ensure the best outcome. Once auto warping has been run on a model, you can easily view your model in the flat state or warped state. This can be accomplished by using the flat and warped toggles within the visibility panel. Please note that you may need to run the Edge Project Shared Parameters tool before you can successfully run auto warping on a project. It is also important to note that direct shapes will affect model performance. As the quantity of direct shapes in the model increases, the larger the impact they will have on performance. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions, email us at edgesupport@ptac.com.